Hello and welcome to Riverside Crafts. Today we're going to be looking at how I made this button wreath. I used the stamp for the polar bear, which is a woodware stamp by Jane Gill. It stamps beautifully, I have to say. A couple of weeks ago we did one where I coloured the stamp in with alcohol markers and showed you how to do this particular type of colouring for the polar bear. So I did that and all I've done is cut him out ready. So he's ready to do what I needed. Okay, so I'm just going to pop this out the way so we can get on with what we want to do. First things first is I cut myself a couple of circles out of grey board. I used two because I just wanted it a bit thicker because this grey board isn't very thick, so I just wanted a little bit heavier to do. Now I use inches, so it was 4 3/4 for one circle and 5 1/2 for the other. So it's 5 1/2 inches for the diameter on the outside and 4 3/4 for the diameter on the inside, or 12 on the centimetres and 13 centimetres. So it depends on which way around it is you use. Then I've literally just wrapped around it with garden twine. That's all I'm using. And I'm just going round and round until it's all covered. The reason I'm doing this is because it looks a bit nicer from the sides, and if somebody looks at the back, it looks neater if you've not got the buttons all over it completely, or you've got a gap. They're going to see the twine, which looks a bit nicer than grey board. So it's just a way of finishing it all off. Now I hope you're all here again today and you've had a good week. Now, as usual, I will answer any questions at the end if there are any, or any queries. Hopefully I will do everything that you need me to do while we are going along. If I miss something, please tell me, and I will go and I will leave the messages for you in the thing. Now I'm going to cut off a piece of extra string. This piece of extra string is for me to make my loop with here, for me to hang it with, okay? So I'm just going to leave that there for the moment, and make sure I'm just going to stick it on the back. I'm just going to wait for my heat gun just to be definitely hot, so I can just get a little bit of glue out to hold it in place. Now when I did this one the last time, I actually used white glue because I had plenty of time for it all to hold and wait together. Well, that's not quite the case this time around. I'm a little bit more, a little bit less time. So as you can see, I've wrapped that there, got myself a loop, and I'm going to wrap this piece of string here that's gone underneath my loop. So I've got like that and a piece there, okay? I'm just going to wrap this around my loop to give me my, look like I've got a knot, but I haven't really. Okay, and then I'm going to take it back and just glue it in the back of what I've just done. So I put another bit of glue on and hold that down there. And as soon as that's set, I'm just going to I'll just cut off the excess as soon as it's dry. Okay, so that's my hoop. If you haven't got grey board, or you could always use an embroidery hoop and go around it in the same way. They look really nice. It's a good way of actually using up your bits to keep it going quite well. Right, so that's that bit done. Now, one of the other things that I do is we get these bells from Riverside. They're beautiful, they're nice and copper, but I actually like mine to look old and rusty. So as you can see, this one's looking very rusty. Okay, and what I want to do is show you how I did that quickly, just because I think it's something that you don't necessarily think of doing. Okay, so here's what I've just finished. All right, so as you can see, it is looking quite rusty, a bit. So it is got a good sort of patina. Now all I've done is find my paints that look sort of that sort of those sorts of colours that you find in rust, and I've added a bit of sand. So you know, I've now been out to the kids' play sand and just nicked a bit because it works really well. These are stencil brushes, nice and cheap. I don't worry, because you don't use a good paintbrush for this bit, because it will mess it up. Okay. Because the sand doesn't really come out when you wash it out, and it's acrylic paints that I've got the sand in. Okay, it's an umber, a raw sienna, a copper, and I can't remember what an ochre are the colours I've used. Okay, so I've got my first sort of coat going over it, which is all brown. Now I'm going to add in some of the other colours a bit at a time. I'm not going to add them all in at once. I'm just going to add bits in. So I want it to sort of look a bit sort of jumbled up. So it's not all the same colour everywhere. You sort of work it round it. And that'll blend it all in, if that makes sense. So you sort of just keep adding little bits of colour and messing around with it and adding a bit more. Sometimes you think, oh my goodness, that's too much of one colour. Well, by the time you've finished messing around and blending it in, it really won't be quite as obvious. And it will look quite sort of, with the sand on it, it gives it a really good cover and bits. And then last, when you've got it dry, I heat set mine because I can't be bothered to wait. But once it's dry, you just add a little tiny bit of like either a copper or a bronze, dry brush it over top of it, just to give it a little bit more of a life. Looks like you sort of see the odd shine of metal through it. Then just going to give this a little bit of a heat so you can see. By the way, if you're wondering what I'm using as a palette, it's a vegetable tray. I keep all of mine for those sorts of things because they're just so that they actually get second use. Depending on how grungy and messy they are, sometimes they get used a couple of times, sometimes just once. So it sort of varies it quite well depending on what I'm doing. Okay, that's nearly dry. So I'm just going to put a little bit of copper of this bronze on it here. Not a lot, just to dry brush it. And I'm just dabbing it on, so it's just a little bit, not a lot. Okay, not a lot at all. So I don't want too much on it because it would just make it look a bit weird. All right. And there you go, another rusty bell. So you can do that to any of your bits and bobs. If you're wanting them to look more vintage, you can paint them up. A little bit of sand in with what you're doing and it will really make it look quite old for you. It gives you a real nice sort of gritty patina that sort of gives you that feeling that it's done. So that's the bell finished. So I'll leave that one there to dry. Put that over there out of the way. Okay, so now we're going to start with some buttons. Right, now I use red and green buttons. Obviously I've got a couple of buttons that are different. Oh no, before I do my buttons, let me just remind you, do the last thing. The last thing I did is use my Christmas tree die, which is available at Riverside, and cut myself out some white trees. Nothing else, haven't done anything else with them than just white trees out of normal cardstock. Okay, so here we go. My green, now you'll notice that some of my buttons have got twine on. I use this twine, it's available normally at Riverside, and it threads through most buttonholes quite nicely, and it gives it a bit more of a vintage feel. You sort of have a bit more of a feel for what's going on. Right, so let me just get my glue gun. Okay. Oh, come on, glue. Go through. There we go. And you can just start putting your buttons on where you think you want them. Don't be try and be too even and neat with it. Just sort of go with it. Be a bit more fluid, if that's the right word. Sort of not too interested in where it goes. All of the stupid strings that you get off of your heat gun, if you use your heat gun, don't panic. We can peel them off when it's all dry. They will come off quite nicely. Oh, there you go. There's my boys having a bark because I've got an extra dog with me this week, so they're having a nice woof. Somebody must have just put something through the door just to keep me to say hello because they do like it. So I'm just adding my buttons in. Now, I've got a range of buttons. They're not all green. Some of them are posh, some of them aren't. They are different tones of green. Some are a little bit more browny. And it's just a way of sort of layering them up. And they're different sizes as well. So I've got tiny ones as well as bigger ones. So it's not really... It's just a matter of putting some on and having a go and seeing where you fancy them. And just sort of adding things in as you go along, really. A bit, so you can sort of have a bit of a play with it. If you think, oh, I want a bit more there, and you want to do it a bit differently, just add them in and go and squidge them down. It's not really a major thing. So you're going around your greens like so. So I'm just going to put a few more on as we go, so we can get this done, going around it. Now we have small red ones as well, so it's worth going through your button jar and finding which ones you've got lots of. I have to say I'm running out of green buttons now, so I'm going to have to go and have a look to see what more green buttons we've got hanging around at the shop and pick some more up, because we have a really good range there. I have to say that's one of the things I do like about Riverside. I have a good range of buttons for you to go and have a good look through. So if you're a crafter who likes to play like I do, or if you're a serious knitter, you can find all the buttons you want and in there, which is lovely. Come on you, that's it, down we go. Come on you, let me come. So we're going around and putting our buttons on. You can add them where you think, oh, I want a bit more. If you're not happy with how it's sitting, or you want some more, bit more of a pop of colour somewhere, you can sort of just add them in and go with it. So I'm nearly there, I think, with that. Okay, so that's my buttons glued on it. Okay. Now I've got some small red ones, and if you look at the original, you'll see that I've done them in groups of 3. This is because it just helps it to look a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. We seem to like our eyes naturally like things to be in a group of 3, which is a bit helpful for this. Got a button that doesn't want to stay there. Let's put it in another bit. There we go. That's better. Another button. Okay, let's do that. Put 3 buttons on it quickly. 1, 2, and 3. Go. 1. Oop, can't get my fingers around it. I think we have to put some glue on another one here. Okay, push that in there. Okay, that's that one done. Okay, so there's my red buttons on. Right, now I'm going to show you how I did my bow. Now, on my bow, I've actually got twine underneath it. Okay, and then the ribbon and a button on top. Now, I didn't use the really thin twine or the one that I've used to wrap it. So I've actually had 2 or 3 different ones. Now, to go round this, you need about 5 meters of twine. But to do the bow in this one, you only need about 50 centimeters will do it, or a meter if you want it to be really thick and fluffy. So it's not too bad. Okay, so that's that bit. Okay. I tend to have lots of bits of twine hanging around anyway, because I use it all the time. So it's something I have in as a stash in my craft room anyway. So I don't tend to think about how much I've used. I just go for it. Which probably isn't very fair when I'm doing these for you lot, because that probably doesn't tell you what you need, does it? Right, so that's going to go just there. So I'm just going to get my glue gun again. Hopefully it's still on. Has it gone off? Yeah, it gone off. I'll wait for a minute then, and I'll do that bit in a second. So that's going to sit just there, like so. Okay. And I've got some really nice red checked ribbon, nice and countrified. And I don't know if you know how to do the bunny ears bow, but I'm guessing that most of you do. But so take your ribbon, hold it on your 2 fingers, make yourself 2 folds. Okay, this way around you don't have to cut a length off before you've made your bow. And then all you're going to do is tie those 2 bits that you've just folded together, and then you can just pull them in and make them whatever size it is you want it to be, and you can just adjust it as you go along before you cut anything off, so you don't waste so much ribbon. Okay, if that makes sense to you. Makes life a bit easier. We don't waste as much, and we can do what we want with it. Right, so that's going there, that's sitting on top. Now, I think we might do it the other way around today. Put the thing, we'll see. Just need to take that one in a bit more. It's not quite small enough there and there. That's it, that's better. Right, so we're about there. I'm just going to cut a piece off of here now. Okay, glue gun. Put that piece on. Good. Bow. Okay, now we're going to have one of these pieces that's on the bow here is going to come round. Okay, and it's going to sit itself in over here somewhere like so. We're just going to catch it on with a little bit of glue. Just going to put a little bit of glue on this edge here, so it goes round and rolls over and catches itself. There we go. So that's that side done. And then this one, it's just going to go and wrap around and just drape. I think it might just drape actually, that one. So I've got one that sort of looks like it's holding, one that doesn't, because I've got to sort out where I'm going to put my bear now. So my bear's going to sit in my wreath, but obviously I want him to sit where I'm going to see him the best. So I need to work out how my wreath is going to hang, which is going to be the best bit for it to hang from. Okay, take my bit of ribbon next, so I've got extra at the top there out of the way, anything else that's hanging, so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to put my bear where I want him. Now, I don't necessarily want all my bear. I probably just want, so I might end up cutting some off. So I'm going to put him about there, I think. I think that's quite nice when I'm looking at how it would hang. So I'm going to put him there. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on my bear. Right, so he can now sit where I'm putting him. So he's going to stay there. Right, so he's in that bit. And then I'm just going to build my trees up behind. Now, You can use a wet glue or your hot glue. It doesn't matter which way around you do it, really. It's whatever you've got and you're happiest to use. I literally just built my trees up, going in different heights and things around, just so that they were held in position, and covered any gaps so that they were all done, if that makes sense. So that's that side for a moment. Put one there, another one up here a bit. Right, let's have a look at what we look like now when I turn him round. There we go. Now I've got all this hanging below, which I don't really need, so I'm just going to trim that off now with my scissors, because that's the best option to do that, to make it look neat. So I'm just going to go in my scissors and trim off all the excess cardstock that's hanging down the bottom there that I don't want, off the trees and off of the bear. So now he looks like he's sat in my button wreath. I've got a ribbon hanging around below, which needs a little bit of trimming off it. I've got some twine that's hanging that can come down behind, but I'm going to tie my bell on that in a minute, so I'm just going to trim this off here. Done. Right, I've got to put my bell on now. Where have I put my bells? I had them all here a minute ago. Here we go, bell. And that. So I'll just thread it in through the twine, through the hole. I'm just going to tie another little bow there to hold it in place. Make that tiny, that one. So it really just only just sits in position. Okay, so that can drape down now behind everything. I've got a red button to go just there. So I'm just going to put myself a blob of hot glue on the back and put it in position so it sits there, like so. And there we go. That is my button wreath completed, with rusty bell and everything else. Let's just put that glue that bit of ribbon in place before it annoys me more than it should. There we go. Okay, so that's how I've done my button wreaths. Slightly different ribbon because I couldn't get hold of that one again. So, but when I saw this one, I thought, oh well, that's going to look really good. So there we go. They are my button wreaths completed. Yes, so I've just to cover again what I've used the Riverside Crafts Christmas tree, the woodware stamp by Jane Gill, which is the polar bear, obviously green and red buttons, lots and lots of twine. Just to leave you again, to make my ring, I cut an inner circle of 4 3/4 diameter or 12 centimeters, and my outer circle was 5.5 inches diameter or 13 centimeters, which basically leaves me a not quite a half-inch ring to play with. Or you can use a embroidery hoop, doesn't matter, they work the same both ways, but it's just a nice way of doing it. So I hope you enjoyed that, and thank you for joining me, and I'll catch up with you again next week. Take care. Bye bye.